tomorrow.
We're all set. What are we doing?
6:30? Yeah.
Okay, we're gonna call the meeting to order. Dan and Mike are both gone, so, approve the minutes from the previous meeting. Are there any questions for Nicholas on the minutes?
No.
Okay,
Nope.
entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Do a second. Thanks, Janice. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Financial report.
Okay, not too many changes, everything was as expected. Increase in the total liabilities and equity reflects the loan payments, no change in assets. Net income earned on interest was $450, similar to the previous months. Expenses were $212, because a grant was dispersed for a facade improvement program project. And, for loan payments, all EDA loans are being paid, and with the sale of Daniels to El Patron, Danielle Schmidt's returned to her business's short-term business interruption loan program, funds back to the EDA.
Perfect, thank you. Any questions for Nicholas on the financial report?
No.
Okay, entertain a motion to approve.
Second.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Downtown lots.
Okay, how is everyone today?
Good.
Good, I'm glad to hear it. It's a beautiful day. I'd rather be outside doing lawn work. But, that never ends.
Glad you got a job. Yeah, I bet.
So, first of all, I need to apologize. I wrote the wrong. It's TIF number 1-17. And then you'll see, I'm gonna hand you the actual official map of the TIF district so you can see what it really encompasses, not that we'll need it for today. But it was also originally labeled TIF 116, it's really 117. So we had to go and amend it, later after the TIF district was formed. So I think, that confusion carries over all these years.
Thanks.
Any extra?
Sure.
I saw that there was, a request for, with respect to interest related to this particular TIF district. And I've brought this up over the last couple of years to the EDA coordinator, just kind of suggesting a change. So the TIF district was created in 2009. It will go through 2038. Within 5 years, the TIF district needs to see some activity, or it's essentially qualified. It did receive an extension by the state legislature because all redevelopment TIFs were extended back when we were having a little more difficulties or downturn in economies in 2009, 2010. But nothing still happened with these lots. And I realize you're familiar with the lots, but just seems to be not a lot of people interested in them because of their size, shape, I don't know what, but because of that. But what we've noticed, okay, so as Nicholas noted, we purchased the lots, we demolished the 2 properties. We did purchase the 2 lots at different times. One of the purchases was made well before I even came, but they were joined together in this TIF district along with those other parcels in 2009. So we've got the city essentially, or the EDA essentially, has those costs involved in the lots. Here's what transpired though is, back then the EDA was kind of the lending house for TIF districts that didn't have monies. And that kind of continued with this one. Certainly no one ever expected the lending to be that great and for such a long period of time. So it's kind of a unique instance. But here we are, every year we've had interest being charged to the TIF district, being paid over to the EDA, but at the same time borrowing from the EDA, which is where that interest comes from. So it doesn't have enough to pay even interest. So even though the EDA has been recognizing the interest all these years, it borrows from the EDA, and then it just increases the amount each year. Now we did drop it from 3%. There is a resolution in place to borrow from other funds for this TIF district And the only limitation is that it's limited to a certain amount as stated in that resolution. I don't know what the number is, but it's, the 3% is under that limitation. So my only concern over the years has been that we're not seeing the TIF district become active to start being able to pay back with those tax increments. And I see the receivable growing on the EDA side and the payable growing on the TIF district side. And will there be activity with this TIF district to be able to start paying that back? Now, certainly you have a lot of time. It doesn't have to be decertified till 2038. So the idea for not charging any interest, you know, it's up to you to determine if you think that's beneficial in the long run or not. And I'm going to discuss some other things that may or may not decide it for you, but that's kind of where we're at. So you can choose, but I'd like to see a resolution. If you choose not to charge any interest, you could choose to lower the interest rate from 3%, but you still have that situation going on where you're kind of borrowing to turn around and pay the EDA back. So it's interesting. You can also choose to restart the interest later if you chose to do that. You know, if somebody comes in and all of a sudden builds a huge 3-story business building on those 2 lots, then you're going to start getting tax increment to be able to pay yourselves back. But nothing will happen until that time, until you have something actually on that lot. Questions so far?
Sure.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, well, let's say that we continue accruing interest. I mean, is there some kind of benefit to us to keep accruing a larger account receivable on this, or is there any kind of a detriment to whoever might end up on that lot, or is it really more of just an accounting function?
Well, it's accounting function. In the long run, it's a net.
Yeah.
Either, you know, the EDA is earning more, but the TIF district's paying more,
Mm-hmm.
So citywide, it's a net. Certainly, there's, because you haven't had a developer come in, you know, if you think the EDA wants to earn interest off of what they've lent out essentially to the TIF district, that's a legitimate thing.
Mm-hmm.
And if you bring somebody in and, you know, 15 years down the road, they're able to pay off what's due, well, is that considered a benefit or not? And that'll be what you
So,
feel is most valuable.
maybe that would be the negative to get at, when you're saying basically, so someone did want to develop this, but there's all this outstanding debt on the TIF district, that would be something they would have to reconcile, you know, as part of the purchase.
Well, they don't have to at all.
Okay.
The city could take care of it however we wish. And
Well,
if
but
they
so you're
did-
saying we could write it off.
Well,
Right,
we'll
which is
get there
fair, I
next.
understand that, but I'm just saying, like, that would be the negative to this, is in reality, your TIF district has a negative fund balance already.
Well,
Right.
here's the thing, if it were big enough, it's possible we could recoup all that.
Sure.
But two pieces to that, so thank you for bringing that up. One is, you're past the time to enter into a development agreement, specifically for that developer to get TIF. But the TIF district is not large enough to pay the city back and be able to offer a developer this other huge amount in the way of a TIF incentive.
Right.
So the capacity isn't there unless it's some huge business building. And if you want an analysis, you know, you can have our fiscal advisor come in and actually draw those numbers out for you, but it was already constructed in a certain way where we knew there would be limits. But we thought also too that it would be a marketable property and it would turn around pretty quickly. But like I say, with the downturn in the economy and I'm not sure what other factors, it didn't happen. So kind of where we're at is, if you leave the TIF district in place, then the opportunity would be to be able to pay the EDA back, or the city back, whichever way you really want to look at it, to pay the EDA or the city back, still bring in a developer, but then you can't offer them TIF on those parcels because the capacity's not there, nor can you offer tax abatement. You can't do both at the same time. It's already designated for TIF. So I laid out some other possibilities. So you can keep the district active, you're bringing a developer, your choice at this point if you'd wanna try and sell the lots, give it away free, somewhere in between. Because it's in a TIF district, if any of the lots, because there's two were the ones behind, you can see all the parcels kind of closer to the railroad tracks. Any sale of those lots go to the TIF district. And that would certainly help pay down the debt. But I'm only saying that too, just so you know that if you sold the lots, technically EDA owns them, it doesn't go into the EDA fund, it has to go into the TIF district. So that's, you could leave things as they are right now, so this is aside from the interest question. You could leave things as the way they are now. Or secondly, you could decertify, just decertify the lot, but EDA would have to take a loss of that 81,000 or 82,000, and the TIF district would write it off. It would just be a gain on their end, but really a zero sum because they weren't able to develop anything in the first place. The possibility then could be that if you decertified, you could then turn around and create a new TIF district, but it could be on the same footprint. It would have to be something larger. So let's say one of the buildings next door was, you bought that and tore it down, then you could create something bigger because of the qualifications needed to be a redevelopment district. You can't just buy bare land. You've got to have something to show that you're really making improvements on it to call it a redevelopment district. So the consideration there is it may not even qualify. Thirdly, you could decertify, and if you could create a housing district, then you don't have to worry about trying to show what you're improving on. If you even took those two lots right now and made it a housing TIF district, then your opportunities open up without having to worry about meeting too many qualifications. But again, would that work or not? With a housing TIF district, I'd like to remind you that then whoever buys it, or if the city somehow managed it, but whoever buys it needs to keep track of income, because the housing would have to be along the lines of affordable or workforce housing. I'm not sure how they define it now, but there are income limits. Well, we already do that. Once a year we contact Prairie Meadows, and they have to send in forms saying, people are earning such and such amount, and they have to have, I think, 13 units under a certain income level. And we'll keep doing that until the TIF district is done. You could decertify it all, and then if you sold it, you could offer tax abatement. And then lastly, do nothing, just try and sell the lots. So those are just making you think about the other things. Now I think the question either today, or if you need time to think about it as your committee, is just the whole thing about, do you charge interest anymore? Because it's getting to that time of year where we do charge. It's a once-a-year entry to make this charge. Questions?
You talk about housing.
Yeah.
I didn't think you could have housing on Main Street.
I don't know. Can we?
Oh, yeah, it's
Well,
a zoning.
I don't know that you would be able to have it on the first floor, but I think you can do it above.
Oh, yeah,
I
you
mean,
can do it
obviously
above.
Yeah, I
We
don't
have
think,
all
I
kinds
think
of
if we were
stuff.
looking at development, now, my biggest concern is, are these lots big enough to support anything? But
Sure.
I don't know that they are. At least, it's
Yeah.
too bad we
Well,
can't
the
pile them all
setbacks
together,
are-
because if you could pile them all together, you get something, but I don't think you can have it on the main floor, but I think above you
No.
could.
Yeah, you could have a couple of
Upper,
apartments above.
upstairs apartments, right?
Yeah, but you'd have,
So what I see is there's $81,000 of accrued interest that's due to the EDA from this district, wherever the lots aren't worth $81,000.
Well, that's the hard part, and it's not all interest. About 60,000 is the purchase of the lot and the demolition.
Okay.
It's about 20,000-ish that's interest over the years.
Yeah, I haven't seen it on the market since 2016, so it really hasn't been put out there to developers. I mean, it's just been sitting there without anybody having a working knowledge that it's available. And at that time, it was only put on for $30,000, so.
And that's, so, other considerations, yeah. well, maybe we try and market it more, but we have other spots available, so
Yeah, have you,
it's a challenge, but.
do you know if anybody has gone to the two on either side of them and asked if they might be willing to take them under their wing or combine them together instead of, right now you have two PID numbers for them, so are you paying tax on both of them?
No, we don't pay taxes on city
Okay.
property. I know at one point, one of the abutting property owners was interested in something, and I think it was to add a business and housing above, but I'm not sure why, it didn't go any further than a few initial discussions. So that's always a possibility. Okay, any other questions?
Is it a possibility to use it as a city park?
If you do that, then it should be decertified to officially turn it into a city park. I realize we put in a tree and a bench or whatever, yeah.
That's BS.
Yes, but we really shouldn't be using it, I guess I don't wanna say should.
It's ours, we
It's
should be
yours.
able to use
It's
it
yours, you're right.
as we see fit.
Yep.
I mean, I think
Name
the
it, right?
biggest question Nancy has for us today is obviously this interest question. And, I know I discussed it with her a little bit, and she's, it doesn't seem like it makes a ton of sense for us to be charging interest on a property that's never gonna, even if we could get a developer to buy it, they're gonna wanna get it for nothing. So it's a matter of, eventually we'll probably have to write this off anyways, but why would we put more interest on it when it's not actually ever gonna be paid? That doesn't make a lot of sense, but that's up to you guys.
All right, well, tell you what, I'll let you talk about that in a minute. I just thought I'd bring forward the other two.
Yeah.
Now, the height of the city having TIF districts was 2009 when you had 12 of them. All of them have been business TIFs except for Prairie Meadows. So that's just letting you know what our TIF districts have been in the past. Prairie Meadows, I just want to let you know, so you can be thinking about how you handle this in the future or a couple years out, but they pay about $80,000 in taxes every year, most of which is TIF. So when it drops off the TIF, it goes on the tax roll, so you can think about that. Note that the required decertification date is 2031. That's the TIF district. We had a developer's agreement that went through 2026, but the note will probably be paid off in 2023. It was a pay-as-you-go note with absolutely no interest. So any TIF payments that we've received go directly against what we owe them in the way of principal, but we turn around and pay it to them. The option, the thing in question there is about a year and a half ago, they came to us and said, can we extend this for longer? Because they were getting that even though they had to pay that $80,000-ish in property tax, they were getting it back. Because twice a year, when we receive the payments from the county, we turn around and pay them the TIF, and that was their incentive for constructing Prairie Meadows. Well, we can't technically do that. However, so this may come up in the future. They may come to us, or we can go to them and say, we can extend it with a new agreement. It won't be for the full TIF, but because the TIF district is already created, they'd have to sign off on extending the TIF, but what often happens with cities is instead of giving that full amount, you give them a certain percentage, but that extra amount can stay in the TIF district, and the city can use that for housing. Can't use it for anything else because it's a housing district, but it's an opportunity to let the TIF district run until 2031 and the city to receive some benefit from it. So in a couple of years that'll probably come up again, so I'm kind of just sharing that with you. And then lastly, we know that the Shopko Folkstead TIF can run until 2041. Hopefully it'll end sooner when we can pay off the debt a little sooner. But we won't know that until we get a lot closer to that date. It certainly won't be in the next 5-10 years. But it. Any questions before I leave, and you can discuss and consider or table till your next meeting?
Would we be able to get a map of the Prairie Meadows district? Cause if we're talking about housing benefits to the Prairie Meadows TIF district, I guess, I mean, if it's just Prairie Meadows, I guess I don't, it just, the map of it would depend, you know, would really make an impact on what we're talking about.
I can get that for you.
Okay.
But to use it for housing does not have to be in the Prairie Meadows TIF district. You can use it anywhere.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Okay, anything else?
Thanks, Nancy.
All right, thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you.
What's everybody think about the interest? I personally don't see the point of accruing that. It's never gonna get paid by anybody.
No.
Seems like all we're gonna do is keep accruing it, and then it's just gonna, I mean, I guess if we feel like we make somebody feel better if we say, hey, we're gonna write off $90,000 of interest as opposed to $82,000 of interest.
Right.
I don't know, like, I mean, they could feel good
It's
about
like-
that or something, I don't know, that's about it. I don't, it sounds to me like we're kinda just paying ourselves.
Right, we're borrowing, and paying ourselves at the same time.
Right.
I mean, it's never gonna get.
Yeah, I mean,
never gonna get
no,
funded.
like I said, I wish those lots were stacked or something, because then you could use them, but I mean, it just doesn't seem that they're gonna be feasibly, tremendously useful for us, so. I mean, if we could sell them to the adjoining property owners, that'd be great, but they're never gonna pay back $80,000 in property taxes for a lot, they'll probably just park cars on it, so. I mean, I guess to me, the action would be, if you wanna write up a resolution for our next meeting, if that's where the board's at, we'll have that resolution for Nancy, the one she's requested, and then we can approve that in, November and have her, go ahead and let her know that that's where we're going, but have that resolution approved that, maybe at that meeting.
Does that make sense, yeah?
Yeah, I guess
I mean,
I'm
there's no-
thinking the only thing positive, it makes the EDA look good at the moment.
Right, yeah. We have this receivable and it keeps
Yeah.
getting bigger, but it's
But,
never gonna.
yeah, in the
Never
long
gonna-
run, there's no,
Yeah.
at this point, but I do think that, we should contact, people next door.
We did have we had an offer from,
AJ?
AJ at one time,
Yeah,
and I can't remember whether it was like
5,000 or
5,000 or
something like
less
that.
or something like
Yeah.
that.
I thought it was 10.
I think he came back at 5.
And I think at the council meeting, it got pushed back, if it's gonna go that low, I'll give you, somebody said, I'll give you a little bit more than that.
Right.
And
Who
so,
said somebody? Where was the money?
yeah, I know.
Yeah, exactly, it's all words until you see a check, yeah.
Yeah. And so I think he just backed off from
Right.
that, at that point, but.
I mean, should we relist them? I mean, 'cause ultimately, we had a conversation, we had that lots committee, where Mike and I and Nick all got together and we talked about it, doing like a parklet or something to not permanent, but not just totally, just let it sit there. But then, we kinda had the idea that we wanna keep the intent of sale going. But, I mean, if we just intend that but do nothing about it, it seems like, I don't know, what are we trying to do right now? So I guess, I feel like we should either get aggressive on relisting them, at the very least, or plan on totally adjusting our game plan and start relooking at this parklet or park idea kinda thing to have some, so it just, I think we ultimately are just at a point where we need to decide what we wanna do.
Yeah.
So it's kinda simple.
Makes sense.
Yeah, I think there are definitely possible avenues. I'll have the resolution for the next meeting, and then we can also discuss, do we want to aggressively try to sell this property, and I can reach out to the neighboring property owners and list it on the website and that sort of thing, or do we wanna, decertify the TIF and maintain ownership of it for other uses, so we could continue that discussion.
I think you're gonna have a really tough time trying to market that to sell. You have 10 feet setbacks and 20 feet, you're not gonna have much, those lots, and they're individually, they should really be put together too. but, that's, yeah.
So we have on those, so the setback, the 10 foot from the adjoining property, so they can't build them right side by side like
They're not
all the other.
supposed to, no.
They can't share walls anymore?
Or put in their block wall right next to that wall, I mean, we'd have to check with, you check with planning.
Yeah, you know, I can
Yeah.
check with planning and zoning on that, I would imagine.
So you gotta
that
get
it
rid of
would
the
be
10
a-
foot setback on the side.
I would imagine it would be a good place for a variance.
I mean, it's a
if it
22
isn't
Yeah,
foot
you
lot.
have to do a variance.
I mean,
Yeah,
usually
they're
in
really
downtown
small.
districts, they don't have any setback,
Well,
but
I-
it's
I
in most of
pretty
the
much
cities
seen
I've
lot
seen,
size
but.
is all.
I never assumed
Yeah.
there was a setback, especially given how small the lots are.
Yeah, the lot front.
Yeah, I mean, this would be like a
22
historic
feet.
business district, and usually it's
Right.
0 there, but we could check on that for
Mhm.
sure.
Yeah.
So just check on the setbacks, planning and zoning and that, and then we can look at, cause yeah, the lots downtown are 22 feet.
Yeah.
That's,
Mhm.
if there's a 10 foot setback, that leaves you 2 foot, either side. I mean, that, we should clarify that just to make sure.
Yeah,
You
that's,
can
that's
make it
what
a
it is
stairway.
for residential.
We'll put a box there. Okay. So you'll get that back at the next meeting with the resolution?
Yeah,
with
and
the
more
interest,
information
And then
on-
more information. If you wanna just touch base with both the owners on either side too, you should have that.
Okay.
Do we wanna send back out those, you know, cause we had looked at some of those, like the different like parklet ideas and
Mhm.
stuff. I mean, do we wanna look at those again as a,
What's a parklet?
it's like a tiny park?
Oh, like the water tower park?
Yeah,
Sure.
yeah, kinda like that, it's just like, it's more like it's like an inlet, right, but it's a parklet, so you kinda like go back in between, but like, you're kinda going in between buildings,
Uh-huh.
right? It's not like a big
Yeah.
open area like North Memorial Park, it's
Okay.
like in between these buildings, so
Yeah,
it's
see
a
what fits.
parklet.
We already have that.
Well,
Yeah,
that could be why
we would do more, yeah, so like the idea was
So
like.
next
Now we
to
gotta
here,
name
we
for
just
it.
could sell those.
Yeah,
to
so
the
the
other
idea
one on
was
the
like,
side
what do
and
we
turn
do to
that
make
on
it
a corner of the
nicer?
parking lot.
I think that's a
Mow.
beautiful
I
idea.
don't know.
Yeah, so
Plant flowers.
we
Yeah, we
talked
talked
about,
about it.
doing like,
I have to take a look at those again.
some like, kinda like more like paver,
Wonder, don't we have a gardening club? We used to have. I mean, like, somebody with, University of Minnesota.
all the
Ag.
extension
Yeah,
after,
the
Master
extension.
gardeners.
We used to have,
Yeah.
something from, or maybe 4-H.
yeah, yeah, or like,
4-H project, yeah.
Mhm.
yeah, we talked about like Eagle Scouts was another
Eagle
one,
Scouts.
and there was a kind of a whole list, or Lions Club was another one, you know, but,
Yeah.
I think we can at the very least, I think, revisit cause we were looking at it, and then we had a pandemic, and then we kinda stopped looking at it.
Yeah.
So I think maybe we could bring it back, and just revisit what some of the ideas were, while we're also deciding on our interests and everything, but.
Sure.
Hi.
Sounds good.
Swing.
We'll add that as an old business item to our agenda for next meeting, okay?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Thanks, Nicholas.
Perfect, thank you. Southwest land discussion.
Okay, so Tim and I wanted to explain how, I guess we see the process of developing the city-owned land moving forward. We wrote this memo and we kind of recommend the EDA consider these scenarios as paths forward to achieving the development goals for the parcel. I've also brought copies of the sketches the EDA board members submitted, so you can see what other people might have envisioned for the lots. We're hoping that the EDA can have a discussion and come to a consensus on plans to develop the property, make sure that everybody's on the same page. One question I'd like the EDA to kind of work on is what your definition of high density residential is. Is that, you know, a multi-story apartment building, or is it something between like your detached suburban home and the multi-story apartment? In the long run, I guess Tim and I talked how we'd like to make a package of this project, you know, so that we can take that to deed or some of these grant programs that could possibly fund some of the infrastructure and, you know, maybe sell to a developer if that's the option that we go with. So we just put all of what we thought were the key considerations to move this project forward into this memo.
Well, I can speak, my definition of, high density residential is 5 units or more, 1 to 4 units being low residential, it's kind of how I think of it.
Yeah, and I guess I asked that question because, I mean, in a couple of these proposals, like I think yours, you talked maybe more about like apartments, you know, where you have like a shared drive, you know, shared parking lot.
I have like a private drive where I'm thinking private drive spot to me is, high.
Sure.
Like, you know, the littler one is more like, you're probably talking like maybe 2 fourplexes or something.
Sure.
But,
I know, for example, like, so I kind of understood that one. I know Kathy and hers, she talked a bit more about like maybe a senior focus like patio homes, which is obviously a different style. I mean, so that was, I just wanted to make sure we're clear because, you know, high density is different to different people.
Yep.
So, I mean, somebody might say, well, patio homes where the setbacks are smaller and stuff like that is high density, whereas maybe the concept is, you know, originally I was thinking, okay, like stacked fourplexes, where you've got like 2 units above, 2 below, but apartments could also be something that would be, you know, what do we feel like the public perception of that would be? Would it be beneficial to look at apartment complexes, kind of like what they've got, if you go to the Hy-Vee on the northwest side in Rochester there, you know, they're putting up some large complexes there, and, you know, that would be a large, population generator, you know, would probably be beneficial for the school district as well. But is that what we're kind of thinking or not? I don't know, that's why I wanted to get some feedback, so. Cause it seemed like in all the proposals that I saw, you know, a mix of light industrial / you know, some small commercial and high-density residential seemed to be the focus. It wasn't single-family home, like standard suburban home. That was what everybody said. I just wanted to make sure we all, when we're saying that, we all kind of are on the same page, so.
And kind of the main takeaways from the memo are that, you know, commercial and light industrial will be important, especially if we wanna look at getting a block grant to help build out the infrastructure, especially in that, you know, this area here where we see as kind of the immediate development area. And then you can also add in housing as well, because there are programs for that, but the main thing with like the infrastructure would be getting some, you know, commercial or light industrial. It's the program says on DEED website, you know, they want an innovative business. What they mean by innovative is really open-ended, but, so.
Yeah, and in some cases, they don't have any businesses. So Kenyon, for example, is building a industrial park. They have no tenants. But they got the DEED grant anyways, so who knows?
Right.
You know, and TIF is something that could be used for some of these too. If we had a developer, if we were going for larger, you know, apartment complexes where it's gonna be $3 to $5 million a pop, if the developer said, hey, I'll build 5 of them, well, we can get a valuation and say, okay, we could use a TIF bond to help pay for infrastructure too then, you know, so just something to think about too.
Yeah, and this will be good information to kind of use when we get the report from Brandon, so you can kind of see what these ideas are and how they, because she's gonna make kind of like a marketing / little engineering report, you know, that'll show where the road should go and that kind of thing. Where certain types of development are most feasible, you know, where a pond would go. And yeah, like I think in the memo I also talked about, you know, if Carter Blaine develops commercial on that property, then that kind of lessens the need for us to develop more commercial on this property, so.
So are you looking for direction today from us, or are we gonna wait till we get the report back from the engineer to?
Wait for the report.
I mean, I think the direction we're looking for is, what does high-density residential mean to you? Is it apartments, is it patio homes, is it fourplexes, you know, and, because that's gonna change how we would fit things on there, I guess. You know, realistically, the largest cash benefit would probably be apartment complexes, because they're probably gonna be worth the most, and they're gonna be the most efficient use of property. However, is that something that, you know, 3-story apartment complexes with 30 units or something like that, is that something that we're really looking for? Or are we saying, no, we wanna focus on a senior style, you know, patio home or something like that? I mean, cause just depending on what we would how we'd end up selling those to somebody, it'd be, cause, you know, Bigelow could do the patio homes, you know, and he'd be a good developer, because obviously he is already in town. However, I don't know that he has a focus on the apartments, whereas we know that there are other people that do have a focus on apartments. You know, some of the folks that you've talked to, Kathy, you know.
with my high-density residential, I was going according to the, information that was provided in September, as a clarification, so that, and I'm assuming that came from the individual that was working up some plan or something. High-density residential apartments, mixed-use buildings, or townhomes with shared green space. So, the townhomes, you could have, we have some similar on County Road 34, where they're 55 or older.
Sure.
Townhomes, so that's kind of what I was envisioning here. And with the pond and the park right there, because, you know, they like to watch kids. And with, the pond and the park over here, now the information we got currently for review today, you were moving the pond?
No, so I just, on this map, I put the pond there because it's a likely spot it could be.
For the runoff from the water?
Because that's where the creek is, so the pond
Yeah.
will be on that side. But I just put it there to have it in the way. But that's not exactly where the pond will go. Could go there, but I just put it on the map so that you didn't have to draw where a pond would go.
Yeah, I mean, that would be the ideal spot with the runoff and stuff, I guess. From the creek, as opposed to, putting a pond over where you have commercial, or, because kids are drawn to that.
Yeah.
And if you have something like that in the industrial or in the commercial, you've got big trucks that come and go, potentially delivering product. You know, depending on what the commercial is, and my concern would be, you know, kids are drawn, you know, and having a park right by that pond would be, I know when I took my grandkids, when the park was where Shopko was, and we'd go down and we'd look for frogs and what have you, so that was, and in that 20 acres, what I figured you could get, was like 80 of the .23 to .24, which is big enough to build on, whether you have a townhome or a single family or, and then, you know, the thing too you need to think about is future growth. You know, is that going to go to the south there with residential and have a consistency of flow from, you know, the park area, and then, and also a consistency of the sewer, the water, you know what I mean? To go further south there.
I guess I don't know exactly with the pond, so where are you saying you wanted to put it at?
Where he currently has it.
Right.
But the information I was reading said something about, having it on the southwest, the note that we got in the packet.
I mean, it's in the southwest side.
I think when we talk about southwest, we're talking about the whole parcel as being the southwest part of the city.
Yeah.
Oh, I
Not
see, not the,
specifically
yeah.
Yeah, no, we
not
know
the
that,
parcel.
we know that
Yeah.
on that parcel, the east part is where the pond's gonna go on that parcel,
Okay.
but the whole
Yeah,
parcel
that's what I
itself
was-
is kind of in the
yeah.
southwest.
And it's
Yeah.
gonna be in that vicinity.
Right.
And there's a very good likelihood, my conversation with Brandon, that it'll actually spill onto probably part of Carter's land. It'll be in
Yeah, that
that
would be
area
good.
depending on the engineering.
Yeah.
It's gotta
Yeah.
be in that corner somewhere.
Yeah, I thought you were just talking the individual 45 acres, the southwest portion of the 45 acres.
Oh.
Okay.
No, yeah, sorry about that.
Yeah.
Well, that's good, good clarification, right?
Yeah.
My question would be is, I mean, how viable do we really think that, even fourplexes would be next to a trailer park? I mean, does that seem like it would actually be saleable? That's why, I mean, when I looked at Tom's proposal, he looks a little more high intensity, like apartment complexes, where I could see something like that, where if it is a workforce housing kind of a thing, you know, where, let's say it's 3-story and it's put next to the trailer park, then that provides really good screening actually for what's on the south side of the street. So on the south side of the street, then you would be able to go with more of what you're talking about, where it's senior or, you know, even single family home, because then the trailer park will be screened from the rest of that property.
Mhm.
You know, whereas, I mean, I don't know that somebody in an apartment is as concerned about it as somebody who's building, you know, if I'm renting a apartment, I don't really care if it's next to, you know, a trailer park, whereas if I'm buying a $300,000 home or a $250,000 townhome, I probably don't want it to be right next to the trailer
trailer parks. I don't know, maybe I'm way off on that, but that's just my own perception of it.
And it is to build on that, you know, a difference in the type of consumer, whereas with apartments, you're looking at people that, you know, may live there a couple of years, but they're probably going to move on to something bigger at some point in their lives. Whereas if it's the patio homes for, you know,
55
retiring
plus,
people,
sure.
right, you're gonna stay there for
10 years at least, yeah.
10 years at least.
Yeah.
And you're going to have, you know, different expectations for that area.
So I mean, like, the reasoning I had was, I try to phase, I kind of phase away in housing type from the trailer parks. Now, I was thinking too, the pond, I guess I was kind of thinking, if you're doing the pond there, doing almost, park type pond thing. And then, I'm imagining, when I say high density or high traffic commercial, I'm imagining either, I guess I was thinking almost like a restaurant, or, something that, like where it makes sense to have, it's not gonna be such a bad thing to have next to a park kind of deal. And then I was, thinking then if you have, I kind of split my roadways a little bit, where I come down from the south then, and then have the industrial or low, kind of, low traffic commercial down there to the south of the apartment complex. Again, I guess I'm thinking, where we have a shortage of property types is we have a shortage of some of that commercial industrial, and I'm imagining on the south towards the, closer to the intersection, that we probably want some space for commercial in the future, and then as you kind of bleed out to the southwest, that then you start getting more into fading out into housing, as you move further west of there. But as you get closer to the intersection, so that you're not bringing that commercial traffic out into the neighborhoods, that you're keeping it up closer to the intersection. I do think, up right by the highway there, that whatever it is, you're gonna, I think the people that are gonna value the road frontage there is gonna be high traffic commercial. I just think that's where we'd get the most value. I don't think people looking to build a house or even rent an apartment are gonna say, oh wow, I get to live by a 4-lane highway. That's great. I think that would be viewed as a detriment there, so I thought, you probably want high density or high traffic commercial. Again, whether that be a, fast food, gas station, something, something that likes the frontage. You could car dealership, so, there's all kinds of businesses that want that visibility. But then kind of pushing back into, some more like I guess when I was thinking of, low density residential, I was envisioning, in some of this like smaller part, less, or just south of that commercial unit there over by the cemetery. I guess I was thinking more like patio homes, high density residential just to the south of the cemetery. I was envisioning in that little spot there, more townhomes, and then getting down into single family housing, in the far southwest there, but, anyways, I guess I didn't, and then I do kind of mark in some visual screening as well, just 'cause I don't think, I think we wanna have some visual screening from the cemetery, probably also if we're gonna do these patio homes away from the whatever businesses up here, and then kind of screening in a little bit with, the industrial and the apartment complex. I think planting trees or some kind of berm or something.
Sure.
So anyways, that's kind of how I went about it.
No, I appreciate that. I mean, everybody who submitted really did a great job, and that's why I wanted to get everybody on the same page with what we were talking about when we talk about high density. Because I can definitely see the demand for some apartments on that parcel that you kind of noted there, Tom. I could see like, it's similar to what I've seen like in Mankato or Rochester, where they put up, the 3-story, and it kind of, right there would be perfect for someone who is a commuter in Rochester if they were still working, because they're right by the park and ride. So they're gonna be able to go over there and just even maybe not even have a vehicle, and then ride downtown and come back, and, then on the south side of it, I could see where you would say, yep, we can break away and start doing kind of the multifaceted housing too in a couple other areas. So yeah, no, that's very viable, but the question I had was, you know, would someone, are we gonna see pushback from people on the, you know, the higher density apartments? Or, you know, are people gonna say, oh, we don't want that? I don't know.
Well, I think, so here's my thought on the high-density apartments, 'cause we do have some, I mean, we have some apartment complexes in town,
Mhm.
right? And the way I see it, we basically have two areas of town that fit well for continuing to build out apartment complexes. It's basically where we have apartment complexes right now, or pretty much as you start kind of shifting away from the trailer park there. I mean, those
Sure.
are kind of the two. I mean, 'cause it's a little different than if we were to just build it, you know, say in like one of like the new single, you know, there's.
Residential subdivisions, sure.
Yeah, like where there is single-family housing, I think it's not quite as abrupt.
Mhm.
Where I think you would get some more of that pushback. I think there's, like I know we had that one proposal with like the cement plant or whatever, the old cement plant.
Over here, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so I think, you know, like that spot or down here, or kinda down to the south here are gonna be the two spots where I don't know if people are gonna feel very strongly about it, other than, you know, I just don't think those are the spots you're gonna get a lot of.
Well, no, and I agree, I mean, to me, like, after I looked through that, I mean, the more I thought about it, like, you definitely have some demand for those.
Yeah.
You know, for rental. And I mean, I could definitely see that, and the other nice thing is if they are a 3-story, they're providing really good screening from the trailer park. Whereas, if you put that in, on the south side of that, even if you put the road up, you know, next to it, you know, nobody's gonna complain.
Right.
You know, if they put another little, you know, if they start putting townhomes along the rest of it, right? So, whereas, if you were putting a townhome right next to it, it might be an issue. I mean, it seems like, what I saw from most folks is that the park, was kinda gravitating towards that sort of intersection of the trailer court and the cemetery. Seemed like at least a couple folks had a park kind of in that area.
Mhm.
I'm sure, once again, that's probably kind of to screen from things. We do know that that part of town does have limited park space. South Fork development, which isn't necessarily a city development, it's got very limited parks. So I know that's a concern the park board itself has talked about, is what to do about parks on the south side. So I definitely think some of this property would be good for parkland. But yeah, I mean, I think that's the feedback we needed. Janice, did you have anything in particular? 'Cause I know you had talked about housing at a previous meeting a little bit. Is that what you were conceptualizing too, or no?
Yes and no, honestly, I don't see this. I'd like to see somebody else, I actually would prefer the parks more to the south where, it is down with the patio. I'm thinking it's kind of odd up there by the industrial.
Which one are you looking at?
Top.
Sorry, there's two, this side?
Yeah.
Over here?
Yeah.
Oh, over by the cemetery?
Yeah, and the trailer court, I mean, I would prefer to see it more that. I don't think too many people from the cemetery are gonna need a park.
Okay. Well, it seems like everybody is pretty much agreeing that we do wanna put a park somewhere on here. So that's great,
Mhm.
because that'll definitely help us with, whatever we end up deciding to do. It'll allow us for some green space and also for some kind of buffer, no matter where we put it. If we're not buffering from the cemetery, that's fine. You know, we could use it to buffer somewhere else, which would be, you know, viable as well. And we can certainly work out what that would look like, if it's a residential park, if it's a green space, you know, whatever it really is. So, I mean, it seems like we've all got some of the same components, which is great. You know, and I don't know, would it be fair to say that a combination of housing styles would be appropriate? We might be able to do some portion of it in higher density apartments, some portion in some multifamily like fourplexes, and then possibly work our way down into the patio home kind of a style?
I can tell you that the patio homes are a big necessity.
Oh, sure.
In town, because if
Absolutely.
you don't know that person who's died,
Mhm. It's hard to
if
get in.
you're not at the funeral asking what they're gonna do with grandma's house, you're out.
You're
Right,
out.
right. No, I mean, I
Yeah.
think there's a lot of demand. I think
There
there's
is.
demand for all three of those. I mean.
Yeah, the only thing that, the housing that we have, the apartment housing that we have, and you haven't lived here very long, but over the many years that I've lived here, does have a nickname. And it's not positive.
Yeah, I know that the ones on the southwest side, on the north side of 14, they
Mhm.
actually are making some real strides and some real improvements. If you drive past there, it's amazing how much better they look. I mean, I used to drive past those when I was going to college. You know, so back 2003, 2004, when I would drive between La Crescent and Mankato, and you could see them every time. That was like the only things I saw off of 14.
I see.
And now it's amazing how much better they look externally at least. But I agree, we don't want there to be a negative perception.
No, because in the eighties, early eighties, no, late seventies, my children delivered papers.
Oh, sure.
I wouldn't allow them to go into those buildings.
Yeah.
That's how bad they were.
Sure.
At one time.
I mean, the good thing for us is we'd be looking at new construction. So I mean,
It
there's
was
certainly
new
a,
then.
yeah, there certainly would be, I think, a more positive
Yeah,
vibe with,
it was
like you
new.
see the new complexes
The new
that get
didn't
built
make any
nowadays, but,
difference, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think ultimately, you know, if you're doing I mean, 'cause you could do whatever type of housing or build it, construction, you can do it well or poorly.
Right.
You know, I mean, we could have, you know, I don't know, we could also have I'm guessing too, like, you probably don't wanna have, like, the industrial, we probably don't wanna have, like, some kind of, like, might not wanna, you know, if we're gonna have industrial right next to a bunch of housing, we probably don't want it to be some kind of, like, fertilizer manufacturing plant that has, like, high explosive.
Right, we've talked about light industrial,
Yeah.
right, which, to be honest with you, part of it is a release valve for some of the businesses in town here that are not particularly well placed.
Yeah.
And we've got a couple of businesses in town that are in really non-conforming areas.
Right,
You know,
yeah.
a good example would be the trucking business across from the highway. You know, he is gonna be impacted dramatically over the next 15 years as development rolls around him.
Right.
And it already is not the easiest location to get in and out of, I think, for his, you know,
Right.
for him. And I know that he's at a time period where he may be looking at transitioning to in the next 10 years, who knows? But we want to be able to provide that opportunity.
Where does the city end?
For what? City
City
limits?
of Casson, city limits, to the north. Where does that end?
It'd be on the north side of the Catholic Church.
Well, so the city.
On the other side.
Oh, on the other side, it would be, well, so you can kind of see it
So-
on here.
Here, that's the city, and then here is.
Yeah, so Schudy's property here would, currently, that's where it would cut off, would be at Schudy's property.
Who's shooting?
Dean Schudy.
I've
He
never
owns
heard
the
of
part,
him.
sorry, I, he
So
owns the part
we're-
that owns here, so.
So,
Cunningham's is in city limits or not?
Which one, from
Cunningham's
trucking
is
company?
Cunningham's
trucking.
trucking.
Yeah, no, he's in city limits right now already.
Okay, so the city limits goes beyond,
no,
That's it.
that is the city.
Just to the north of.
Well, no, that entire parcel
Foot.
is all in the city limits, right?
Yeah, foot.
Yeah,
It's foot in
To
city
the
limits?
west, it isn't, like, so Schudy's property kinda cuts in, Schudy's property does here.
Okay.
So to the northwest it's in, and to the south it's in, but this little part right here isn't in city limits right now.
It's not.
Cunningham-
Kinda like,
Cunningham foots are in the city limits.
like the Dodge County
Cunningham and
Fairgrounds
Foot is
not
in the
in
city
the city
limits.
limits.
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah,
Those
it's,
residential lots there are in the city limits.
the city's not very squared off. It looks, I think it looks kind of like a big, almost like pirate ship, where it's like, there's like the bow, and then there's kinda like there's like a stem that, like a mast that comes up, and then like a big mat, you know, like the big sail, and then if you go down below, there's kinda like the big rudder system and everything. But, that's how I keep track of it,
I can see that,
yeah.
Never really did that the same.
but I don't think any city is squared off.
No.
Usually not, no.
Even in Rochester.
No, they're like a big star, kinda
Oh.
like the, over Bethlehem or something, but,
So you guys, did you get what you needed as far as the Southwest?
Okay.
Sure,
discussion?
I think
Just
so.
Yeah, I
To
think
come
we
back
would,
to the
and
next
then
one.
we should have that report.
That's
the
right,
next
we'll try and
meeting.
incorporate some of those concepts and do it a little bit better.
Okay, thank
Alright.
you very much. Coordinator report?
Okay, I'll just read through this. I reached out to Adolfo Angel, who is working with El Patron. I shared the business improvement program with him. Tim and I met with CARE and Bucky Beeman and Hank Friedrichs to discuss possible redevelopment of the old school building. Some preliminary discussion. We also met with Brad Clements of Key Builders and Pat Adamson, the owners of Plaza 57, to get a tour of their building and discuss how we can help fill it with tenants and businesses. Coordinated with Jamie Strickmerath of Future Forward to have manufacturers in Dodge County produce virtual tour videos for Manufacturing Week this year. Those videos will be seen by students in the Cass and Manville Public Schools. dropped off over 40 applications and guidelines with businesses in Casson. So far, 13 businesses from Casson have applied for grants through the program. And I just wanted to share that the program still has remaining funds and will be accepting completed applications through November 15th, or until program funds are completed. And I also created a pamphlet which I included with that business outreach, that just kind of highlights the important parts of some of the programs the EDA operates, and I'll probably put that on the website this month. And if anybody has any changes they'd like to see or comments on that, you can share that with me, and I'll make that change. That's everything for the coordinator's report. Oh, and the 2021 budget was approved, so I just included that in the packet as well, so that we had the finalized version of it.
I think the program looks very nice.
Brochure?
Yeah, the brochure,
Mhm.
yeah.
And I put it out in front of the lobby too, so if anybody comes in and sees it, might get a full program after.
Absolutely. Thanks, Nicholas, appreciate it. Other business, open discussion, anything about that?
Is there anything we can do to help that bakery open?
Who's your main contact there anyways, Nicholas?
Is Adalberto Guzman. I tried calling a week or two ago, I didn't get through, but I'll keep trying.
Cause they went through the county for their laws,
Yep,
right?
they did.
Okay. Yeah, that'd be nice to know where that's at.
There was somebody, like 2 weeks ago, I saw somebody going in and out of there a couple times when I was walking down the mall, but I didn't
I
get a
haven't
chance
seen
to
any
I mean, I looked in the windows and I mean, it looks like they're ready to go. Of course,
Yeah.
who knows how much that's old from old before, but, I mean, they need a sign change, the same thing with the one up here, Daniels. I mean,
Mhm.
the sign change, and I don't think they're gonna do a whole lot else in there right away,
Yeah, I've shared that
so.
with them as well, so.
Okay.
Items from November, we got coming back.
The resolution, with more information on the downtown lots, so discuss possible path forward with that, and then hopefully the report from Brandon and just more discussion on the Southwest property.
Perfect.
And, Dodge County should be presenting youth hockey, they should be presenting.
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much, I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
I make a motion.
Thanks, Deanna, so second. Thanks, Kathy, all in favor?
Aye.
For adjourned. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank
Enjoy the weather today, boy,
Yeah.
it's supposed to be pretty
Yeah.
nice this afternoon.
All week.
Yeah.